On this edition of Southern Newsweek, a confronting stage play aims to educate teens about alcohol and peer pressure. The National Party says it'll support a major development in Wanaka, and a bomb threat in central Dunedin is quickly defused. Kia ora, I'm Daryl Baser. The SMASHED project, established in the UK in 2000, was brought to New Zealand in May by responsible drinking initiative The Tomorrow Project. The show is delivered by the Life Education Trust, and last week's event brings the number of New Zealand pupils who have seen the touring show to 20,000. Bringing alcohol harm awareness to 20,000 Year 9 pupils. Travelling show SMASHED is a three-person play demonstrating how peer pressure and alcohol can be an unhealthy combination. Kavanagh College Year 9 Dean Iris Bukowski says the pupils she takes care of are at the perfect age to hear the message.
They need to realise that they don't need to be part of that cool group who wants to try everything, and that it's okay to say no to things that are not healthy or that can cause a lot of bad effects.
Responsible Drinking Initiative The Tomorrow Project is behind the Life Education Trust show, and the project's leader Matt Claridge says SMASHED empowers youngsters to make better decisions.
And the basic real learning that kids get out of this show is they learn social skills to deal with peer pressure situations when alcohol is involved, which is pretty important for young teenagers. And research tells us that Year 9 is the level to start that.
Claridge says research shows more than half of all teens have had an alcoholic drink over the past year, and he says young people's attitudes to alcohol generally change after seeing the show. This was the case for Year 9 pupils Kira Lee Burgess and Cole Phillips. What is the take-home message you've got from what you've just seen?
To drink responsibly if you do, but try to avoid it.
I originally thought drinking would be fine when I get to like 18 or something, but now I'm having second thoughts, knowing the severe effects and what my parents would think, how it affects my even university grades or later in college life grades and stuff.
Actors Kieran Milton as Jack, Troy Vandergoes as Caleb, and Carice Utai as Charlotte held the attention of 80 Year 9 pupils at the Kavanagh College Gymnasium yesterday. Matt Claridge says the Tomorrow Project aims to obtain further funding and have the show seen by every Year 9 pupil in the country. In Dunedin, The South Today. The National Party is unlikely to obstruct the expansion of Wanaka Airport if elected next year. That's according to party leader and former Transport Minister Simon Bridges, who visited Wanaka late last week.
Indication, announcement of what National will do in government.
Simon Bridges addresses the Wanaka community during his visit to the region last week. With tourist numbers set to grow, the Queenstown Airport Corporation has proposed turning Wanaka's small airport into one capable of landing passenger jets.
Reality is you've got huge numbers of tourists coming into this part of the world. It's a big part of how New Zealand makes a living, and so broadly speaking, whilst it's for the airport, it's for locals. I'm somewhat sympathetic to the case that's being made around an additional airport at Wanaka.
Bridges says the Resource Management Act and other planning laws protect locals, and he'd like to see local residents have the final say on any expansion.
I think though what does work best, whether it's ports for ships or whether it's airports for planes, is local communities and the airports making decisions in their own best interests.
He doesn't rule out the possibility of central government taking part in the decision-making process.
Look, I think never say never in terms of government getting involved in these sort of issues. You know, sometimes there is a case for a bit of pulling power, if you like, from the government saying, you know, we think you may be getting this wrong.
The proposal to have jet-capable airports in both Queenstown and Wanaka would mean about $400 million being spent on developing Wanaka Airport over 25 years. In Wanaka, The South Today.
A celebration of Mid-Canterbury's hydrological history has been unveiled. A signboard now commemorates the building of the nearly 70-kilometre long Rangitata diversion race, created in the 1930s and 40s by workers using picks and shovels. A signboard celebrating the Rangitata diversion race has been unveiled at the top of Klondike Terrace on the banks of the Rangitata intake. Hydrologist Terry Healer says the engineers of the day were years ahead of their time.
Are being studied and researched worldwide through complex computer models. But these guys got it right in 1935, 1937. They got the hydrology right, as proven by 75 years of operation.
The RDR, as it's known, was completed in 1945, runs from the intake on the Rangitata River to a discharge site at Highbank on the Rakaia River. 75 years down the track, or down the stream in this case, RDR Management Limited Chair Richard Wilson, who also farms in the catchment, says the body of water is like a member of the family.
I feel that the RDR is part of my river, the Rangitata, because it's a critical part of everything, socially, economically, everything that has come out of this district.
Environment Canterbury's David Cagle was Minister of Finance in 1990 and signed the transfer documents from the Crown to the local community, and says he's proud of his part in the irrigation scheme's history.
It was my signature as Minister of Finance on the transfer document from the Crown to the local community on the 1st of October 1990, one of the last acts of the Fourth Labor government.
He says it's a decision which rings true to this day.
In relation to this asset, it seemed to me instinctively, rather than based on any particular analysis of this project, just as a matter of instinct, it would be better owned and administered and developed by local people. And I believe it has been.
Terry Healer says when the Rangitata diversion race was created, it was the biggest and boldest move made by a country coming out of the Great Depression and into a world war. In the Rangitata, the South Today. A central city Dunedin supermarket was swarmed by police when an item of potential concern was seen in a parked vehicle last week. However, it was a bit of a fizzer as a Dunedin man was simply handing in a practice mortar he'd been given by a friend. Looking like the real thing, but safely full of sand and not explosives.
I came down to see a gentleman who worked for exhibits, but he wasn't here. So of course then I had to sort of say, well, this is what I've got. I'd left it in the car.
Police cordoned off Countdown Supermarket and Great King Streets mid-morning after Dunedin man Dennis Hodge let police know he had a practice mortar in his car. He says he knew it wasn't the real thing, although admits to not having any military training.
They've got to cover themselves, so I went in and asked to speak to someone that I knew, and this is the outcome of it.
Several blocks in central Dunedin were cordoned off by police for around an hour. Some people were allowed into the Countdown car park to retrieve their vehicles, but others were told to stay clear. And Hodge says police had to be sure it was safe.
I was fully aware of the response, and I take my hat off to them. Everything very cool, calm and collected.
During the alert, people were allowed to drive away their cars already parked in the car park, but no new shoppers were allowed to drive in, and pedestrians were not allowed to walk through the central car park area. And Hodge says the item is significant to him as it belonged to a gravely ill friend.
Yeah, but it hasn't got any danger to anyone else. I've asked that I can have it back again.
Police appreciate being advised of the bomb, but say in future they'd prefer people giving them a phone call, which lets them investigate the bomb in its initial location, rather than bringing it to the Central Police Station. In Dunedin, the South Today. Still to come on Southern Newsweek, Queenstown goes to the Dogs with the annual Downhill Dog Derby, and young Dunedin voters grilled political hopefuls at a recent forum. I'll see you after the break. Welcome back. Wagging tongues and tails signalled happy hounds as they dashed through the snow at Coronet Peak for the 45th Dog Derby race. Sunshine came to the party when around 80 dogs and their owners bolted down a freshly powdered mountain last weekend. Queenstown has gone to the dogs, and size doesn't matter. From Jack Russells to Labradors and Leonbergers, with many crossbreeds in between taking part in the 45th annual Dog Derby race.
We've got two different courses, so we have a towny course which is more of a straight dash, and then we have the country course which relives the tradition of sending your heading dog back up the hill. So they have to run down the same, but then they've got to send their dogs back up around a pen, and that's where the challenge really begins.
Coronet Peak area boss Nigel Kerr says the event is well organised chaos, comparing it with a dog show, but just a very informal one.
I think it's the sheer confusion of man and pet generally trying to all go in the same direction. I mean, normally the dogs lead the race and then look for the owners, so they are handicapped, the dogs are handicapped by their owners, and some people even come up here to look at what breed they'd like next. You know, it's like a dog show, just not a very formal one.
Kerr says around 80 human and animal teams enter the competition, with townies darting downhill from the top of the Meadows Express chairlift. Running with his dog Moose on a lead, Invercargill man Triton Bain was nearly tripped by an unleashed dog, but recovered to slide home, claiming the $300 cash prize, ahead of several dogs who'd left their owners way behind.
Every dog's getting a collar, every dog's getting a lead, there's hats for the owners, there's dog beds, there's prizes, like cash prizes as well as pet store vouchers, and of course in the country section the first three get one of these, which is pretty much a useful must-have if you're on the hills.
Renee Morrison, her competitive canine gin of Makomai Station, won the country division, claiming the $500 prize. Hundreds of supporters watched as the owners and their pets caught the chairlift up the mountains before cheering them on from the ski area while the race was underway. The event has been held every year since 1974, originally the idea of local legend and ski field staffer Des Gavin. In Queenstown, the South Today. Dunedin's mayoral candidates were kept on their toes by younger voters on Tuesday. The Dunedin Youth Council hosted about 50 pupils in the Harbourview Lounge at the Edgar Centre for a Speed Date the Mayor event. Young Dunedinites putting the tough questions to Dunedin's political hopefuls. In a rapid-fire series of speed dates, where the Snapchat generation can get a snapshot of people who want to be the city's next top councillors.
We've got a lot of council and mayor candidates speed dating year 13 from around Dunedin. Yeah, just trying to give them a bit of a vibe about what they're doing in council this year and what they should be elected on. Candidates were asked a wide range of questions, from describing the Dunedin of the future to what their favourite song was. However, Youth Council Chairwoman Melissa Bonilla-Casanis says there's a solid core of younger voters interested in local body politics. I think there was a lot of people that were keen, but because of the time of year, while mock exams are going on, the last internals being the last week of term 3, it is a very busy time and not all schools were on board with them coming. So, but we definitely have had quite a lot of engagement between youth because they are interested in politics. Bonilla-Casanis says there are many issues facing the city that are particularly pertinent to younger voters. Climate change is a big deal to so many youth, and also Mental Health Awareness Week is next week. Having the Mental Health Awareness Week event this Friday that the Youth Council is also helping on, I think that's another big issue for youth. She says yesterday's event was a rare chance for young voters to engage local body politicians, as many council meetings are held during school time, meaning pupils can't attend. In Dunedin, the South Today. A group of Otago teenagers have had the job of guiding their peers and the public through the history behind the Diary of Anne Frank. Otago Girls High School is hosting an international touring exhibition created by the Anne Frank House Museum in Amsterdam.
Checking up on the touring Anne Frank exhibition currently on display at Otago Girls High School, Dutch immigrant and former Dunedin resident Boyd Clapp is now in his 90s and closely involved with bringing the exhibition to New Zealand.
Well, I was a young teenager in Holland during the Second World War, so I experienced the horrors of Nazi. I could see Jews being departed, left the city, never came back. So all my life that stuck with me, what democracy is, what discrimination is. And I felt when I was asked to be involved in Anne Frank, I thought, yes, I think I can make a commitment to that.
The exhibition tells the story of how Anne Frank and her family moved from Germany to neighbouring Holland to escape Nazi persecution. But following the German invasion of the Netherlands on May 1940, they encountered growing discrimination once again. Among the displays is an actual gold-coloured Star of David, which all Jews were made to wear to identify themselves in public.
Not long after the Germans occupied Holland, they started to discriminate against the Jews. They had to wear the Star of David. They had to report. They were not allowed to be in public parks. Then they weren't allowed to be at normal schools. Jewish schools were started. And Anne Frank and her family, they thought they were safe, but they had to go into hiding in 1942. And he was a successful businessman. He had a very large warehouse in Amsterdam, and behind it was sort of accommodation, and they moved in there. And whilst she was there, she was a very intelligent, independent young woman, very wise. She started writing daily notes about what was happening, how she reacted. And then the Minister of Education of the Dutch government, who had escaped to London, made an appeal to the people in Holland and said, any of your experiences, please write a diary so that after the war we can look at that, which was a very wise thing. And when she saw that, she rewrote those notes into a diary.
Her family were eventually caught and sent away to the concentration camps. Anne was one of about 1.5 million children killed by the Nazis. Her father was the only survivor in the immediate family and published a diary after the war. Klapp acknowledges many Dutch citizens stood by while the Jews were rounded up and sent on cattle trains to the concentration camps.
Well, there was a famous philosopher who made a statement, bad things happen when good people do nothing. And if I look at the situation in Holland, most people would have hated what was happening. And then at the extreme ends you have the collaborator and you have the people that were prepared to give their lives if needed be. So it is sometimes not easy to know what is right or wrong, because it isn't always black and white. For instance, the mayors of the cities, some resigned immediately when the Germans came because they were not going to cooperate. Others stayed on because they were able to mix with German officers, found out things and saved people's lives.
Klapp remembers his neighbours being taken away to concentration camp and his mother-in-law giving them food and drink for the journey.
They were out in the streets and the truck was there to take them away. She offered to take the two boys and look after them until after the war. Saartje, which was the name of that Jewish woman, Saartje said, no, I want to keep my kids with me. They didn't realize they were all going to be killed, really. And my mother-in-law had a thermos and some food, so Saartje took her ring off and gave this ring to my mother-in-law. And my mother-in-law has worn that ring all her life until she died. Then my wife wore that ring all her life till she died. And now my daughter is wearing that ring.
Education manager at the New Zealand Holocaust Centre, Lizzie Eves, says despite Anne Frank's tragic story, it does bring a positive message to young people.
We've had students in tears, very emotional, but we've also had a lot of inspired students. It gives them a lot of hope, I think, for the future. It does look at the difficult elements of history, but it also encourages young people to stand up against prejudice and discrimination.
The Anne Frank exhibition is on display at Otago Girls High School for a month and is open to the general public during the school holidays starting next week. In Dunedin, the South Today.
After the break on Southern Newsweek, a Dunedin artist's work on a public toilet earns her nationwide recognition, and Central Otago teens are getting their hands dirty with an automotive project. See you after the break. A Dunedin painter is one of 10 artists around the country having their work recognised and funded by Keep New Zealand Beautiful. Claire Rye is one of 10 winners of the 2019 Resine Nature Murals competition. A beautiful toilet. Not words that typically roll off the tongue, but it's what Dunedin artist Claire Rye has created in South Dunedin.
It's spectacular. When I was painting it, every time anyone went in, some jolly music would play. Yeah. And I'd kind of try and step away because there was a chemically smell that would come out every time.
Each of the winning designs nationwide receives a $1,000 grant upon completion, along with a $750 resined paint voucher and other materials needed to paint the murals.
And they commission, I think, around 10 murals nationwide that have environmental messages. So it won one of those prizes, which was really awesome.
Rai says she met many people while she was painting one of the busiest public loos in town.
People have been really cool because they just stop and have a chat as well, which was really nice to get some feedback about the mural and, you know, what it's doing for this street.
She says her work, How Wetlands Help, follows a theme close to her heart. Coming from London, she believes New Zealand has an opportunity to preserve many aspects of the natural world, and she hopes her work can be inspiring.
I really want to try and get environmental messages across in my artwork, and wetlands are really, really important for many reasons, and I feel like we've lost a lot of those areas or developed them. I mean, we're standing on an ex-wetlands right now.
Rai says the work took about 4 solid days to complete, from washing the walls down to undercoating and then applying the layers. And she says she'd be open to offers to paint further murals. In Dunedin, the South Today. More than 20 pupils of Kaiapoi High School in the Waimakariri district spent the term taking part in a testing leadership program. Known as Cactus, the program wrapped up at the end of the term as the teens completed a huge morning which began before sunrise. Taking the strain, chanting as they come. Kaiapoi High School pupils pulling 2 fully laden fire engines along the town's streets towards their school, following a very early start to the day as part of a peer leadership program called Cactus.
It's a great program where we get up 3 days a week on a Monday, Wednesday and a Friday. Come down to school and at 6:20 we do fitness. It's a way of learning team building and leadership for people in the group. Today was the longest day. We got up at 5 o'clock in the morning. We stayed the night at school previously, last night.
Kaiapoi High head boy Flynn Johnson is pleased to have been working with a group of people he says he'd not typically get to know.
Well, it's been great today. The whole term we've been leading up to this one challenge, and personally I've just loved working with these people that normally I wouldn't have much to do with. So it's been great to meet new people, and also the fitness side of things as well. It's been great for me personally, feeling a lot fitter. And yeah, it's just been a great mental and physical challenge.
Cactus members were honoured with a haka as they pulled the fire engines past the Cultural Studies Centre Te Kohiko, and when they arrived at the school. With the strain on his face still evident, Johnson says pulling 2 fire engines was a heck of a workout and more than just a physical one.
Oh, well, I started pulling it and 100 metres into it. I thought we should be done by now. I'm stuffed. But nah, you just dig deep, get that stamina going and those mental things we've learnt throughout the term. And pulled through, and everyone did their part, and we got here in the end.
The program is run at the school each term with different intakes of pupils each time, and Johnson says some people who do the course in year 10 choose to repeat it in their senior years. In Kaiapoi, the South Today. A combination of demolition and destruction, rugby and racing are making for an exciting project for a group of Cromwell College pupils. They're working with former rugby league sportsman and sprint car racer Whetu Taiwa to create a demolition derby car. Getting this Subaru race ready.
Basically, we're stripping out a car for this first project. So stripping out the car, getting it ready, taking all the glass out, putting in a seat belts, a bar in the back of the driver's seat for safety, and then eventually we'll be painting her up and selecting someone that they would like to drive in it.
When completed, the car will be able to race at a demolition derby at the Central Motor Speedway on Sandflat Road. But there's a lot of work to be done before that glorious day.
Just basically, following rules, identifying what we need to do to get the car up to spec, all the rules and regulations, and basically to get the car completed from start to finish.
Among those taking part are Year 9 pupils Mati Paranihi and Trent Ainsley, who say taking part in this hands-on project is helping them at school.
We've took out all the windows and seats, except obviously in the car, and that's about it. We just made it safe for the demolition derby.
Well, it's real fun, and it's actually quite hard, so I like that. And I've been getting in less trouble at school, so it's working.
Former rugby player and sprint car racer Whitu Taiwa says the boys have taken the car as a work in progress out to the local speedway track for a bit of fun, but he says they've got to stay safe.
Something that they're still sort of trying to get to grips with. We've been out to the track a couple of times and had a wee skid, but safety does come first.
Taiwa says the pupils have agreed on a set of rules, and if they step out of line, they know they won't be allowed to continue with the project. The job of working on the car is set to continue into next year, with the aim to have it ready for next year's Demolition Derby in March. In Cromwell, the South Today. That wraps up this edition of Southern Newsweek. For the latest news from across the southern region, check out odt.co.nz and follow Channel 39 on Facebook and YouTube. Take care. Ka kite anō.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.